Okay, and when I'm referring to ecological economics, it's different from environmental and natural resource economists. Ecological economists tend to critique a lot of the economics you've been learning over the last however many years you've been learning. Which is why we're also, another reason not to invite us to the cocktail parties. Okay, so here we are. This is a whole bunch of socioeconomic indicators. I don't expect you to see the details of the back of the room, but I do hope you can see the tendency of each of these curves. They're going up. And usually in economics, you know, curves going up, GDP going up. My colleague Lisa from the Bank of Canada, I like those things going up. It's pretty cool. It's all looking good. And, you know, here's the stock market going up. That's awesome. When it goes down, we start to get worried. We may have to pick up a second job or not buy a cottage, whatever it is. But yes, generally going up. That's what we want to see. However, there's other things that are going up. And if you look at the ecological side of things, I'm just curious, how many of you are worried about what the state of the environment is going to be by the time you're retired? Okay. And how many of you who just put up your hands were the same ones who put up your hands about the money? Okay, so it's not just the money, then. That's cool to learn. Glad to hear that. Okay, so here we have carbon dioxide. I think you all know about climate change. I don't know how much you talk about it in your economics courses, but we're just shooting through very high levels of CO2, levels that haven't been seen in more than 800,000 years. That's not good news. We're doing a big experiment. Stratospheric ozone, that's actually one that we solved. Nitrous oxides going up. Methane, another greenhouse gas, much more powerful than CO2. Ocean acidification. We're busy pickling our fish just out there. And pickled fish can be a good thing, but they don't reproduce very well. One thing that's leveled off is marine fish capture. So it's leveled off. That suggests we're becoming more sustainable. Well, actually, it's leveled off because we've overfished a lot of our fish stocks, and the fish stocks are collapsing. So not good news. So, etc. One of the ideas in ecological economics is that we are in this period of the great acceleration. What's happened is our population has grown rapidly, and governments around the world have defined economic success, and most of your economics professors probably define it this way as well. You want GDP growth. If you're already a developed country, you want 3 to 4%. That's ideal. If you're somewhere like China, you maybe up 7, 8, 9, 10. Can the Earth take it? Last time I checked, the Earth itself is not growing. So limits to growth, this is 1972, right? So they're very advanced. They were using a computer model. Can you imagine using a computer model back then? And they put out these things, resources, and what they did is they got all the data they could find way back from 1900, gathered all sorts of data, put this together and thinking it as systems, and looking at the different relationships. So if you have more food, then population goes up. If you start to have not enough food, then population birth rate slows down, etc. And they ran it through, and they ran it to 2100. And they ran different scenarios. This was roundly criticized by economists. Dismissed it out of hand, and you'll hear that the Club of Rome predicted that resources would run out by the year 2000, and they did. Well, they never said that. Nowhere in the report does it say that. There were some very unfair criticisms and a lot of character assassination in the attack. Because, let's admit it, for our society, which has grown since the Industrial Revolution, we've become dependent on growth. We have to have this growth. When we don't have growth, we have a recession, there's no jobs, it's really hard. This was a real threat, this kind of thinking. Can you move it forward? That button's not well cooperating right now. Okay, so in this fellow Turner from Australia, around 2008, he started to say, well, wait a sec, that report happened quite a while ago. We've accumulated all sorts of extra data. Let's run the data and see how well this model that was so roundly criticized did. And he started plotting the data, and there's lots of graphs, I just picked one. And in here, the run that best follows where we're going, where all our different indicators are, is the standard run. And the standard run is we don't really enact very strong sustainability policies. We don't really do anything. And it means there's a population collapse sometime this century, probably starting in the next 20, 30 years. Now, the people who developed this model said, look, this is not a prediction. We're not saying this is going to happen by this date. We're actually trying to influence policy. We don't want to see this happen. But unfortunately, we're tracking where that's going. And all this growth is putting a lot of stress on the planet. And as economists who've been trained to go out there and look at growth as a healthy thing, I think we're going to have a problem. You see? Okay, how many of you don't want me at your next cocktail party? Uh-oh. Okay, I'm not doing a very good job here, am I? All right, here's another, I went and did my postdoc at the Stockholm Resilience Center, which is a really cool place, very interdisciplinary, about 100 scientists from all around the world, lots of economists, but also lots of social scientists, and but especially natural scientists, ecologists, and so on, bringing in all sorts of data and whatnot. So in 2009, they published a paper in Nature where they proposed that we look at what's the safe operating space for humanity? How much can we acidify the ocean before we put ourselves in peril? How much can we put CO2 in the atmosphere before we cause problems? How much biodiversity can we lose? I don't know if you've talked about the fact that in the last 40 years, a study recently came out, in the last 40 years, we've basically lost half our wildlife on this planet. That's part of that great acceleration. To me, that kind of fact, it's got to start to hit us and make us go, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do differently? So we need lots of ecological economists because really there aren't enough economists who are thinking about this kind of thing. And to do ecological economics, you've got to have some background in the environmental sciences and ecology. You've got to learn some foundations there. And you've also got to be willing to read outside of the standard text and to be open to some new questions.